I'd like to call this meeting to order, the City of Sebastopol Planning Commission meeting of Tuesday, April 11th, 2023, and start out with a roll call, please.
Thank you. Commissioner Ottinger.
Present.
Commissioner Kelly is absent. Commissioner Burns.
Here.
And I will note Commissioner Burns is attending in accordance with AB 2449 Just Cause. Is that correct, Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Thank you. Vice Chair Fritz
Here.
and Chair Fernandez.
Here.
We have a quorum with 4 members here.
Great. Thank you. And moving on to the agenda, item number 2, comments from the public on items that are not on tonight's agenda. Anybody comments not on tonight's agenda? Go ahead, step up.
Hello, Steve Pierce, Sebastopol. I'm here tonight to talk about the Barlow Hotel. And I know that it's starting to move along in its processes. And I believe it was before COVID, maybe 2018, 2019, the last time the Planning Commission talked about this as a proposal. And I thought they were very prudent at the time to say, let's see what happens in Sebastopol after we build our first big hotel. And I think that that's a very good idea. Let's see how it shakes out for our town in terms of traffic and in terms of changing our town. Yeah, how we're talking about another $500+ a night hotel in Sebastopol. I know we're a far cry from what Healdsburg is like. And I'm not saying that we're going to end up being Healdsburg with 2 hotels, but we're down that path. And it could irrevocably change the character of Sebastopol. I know two-way streets are part of this discussion too. And I think it really, let's hold on, see what happens with our first hotel. I think they need a zoning variance to make this happen. The city has leverage. We're not in a hurry. What's happening is there's pressure building by the developer to move this along. If you were to go to the Out West Festival and see what does Morris Street look like? What does the parking lot over there look like? Well, they're crowded. How does that work with, I believe it's 84 rooms that are being proposed here? There are quite a few issues that need to be looked at and examined. Let's go very slowly and let's wait and see what happens with our other new hotel. And I want to give support to Planning Director Svanstrom. I was not at the meeting where the developer or the owner was kind of pushing this. It's from, I read the accounts in Sebastopol Times, and it seems like there was some real kind of disparaging comments put towards our planning department. I wholly support our planning department. I hope that whoever gets hired as the next city manager will continue on with our direction in the planning department. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Hi, I'm Lisa Pierce in Sebastopol. Steve basically said just about everything I wanted to say. I'm just going to also strongly recommend that our town doesn't bow to the pressure of the developer. There's really no reason to rush on such a major decision. And I think that the new hotel that's that's going to be starting any moment really to get built is maybe going to impact our town more than we realize. And that there's no reason that we need to feel bullied into getting this other project going before we really feel confident that that's what we want. Thank you.
Thank you. And if we have any other.
We have not received any public comments via email this week for items not on the agenda.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll go ahead and close comments from the public on items not on the agenda. And moving on to item number 3, statements of conflict of interest? Anyone on the commission for tonight's agenda? Okay, don't see any. So we'll go on. There's no item number 4, no minutes to approve. And so that moves us on to item number 5, 771 773 First Street Thrive Construction Builders Studio variance.
Thank you. Tonight's request is a variance from the Sebastopol Municipal Code section 17-100-060 for construction within a creek setback. This section requires a minimum of a 30-foot setback for buildings, mobile homes, garages, swimming pools, parking spaces, and driveways. The parcel is currently undeveloped and has been in design review for the construction of a new single-family home with a detached accessory dwelling unit, which includes site improvements and vehicle access from First Street. The property also borders Calder Creek that runs north and south and limits the developable footprint for all 3 of these lots. Some background information: the subdivision for these 3 lots was approved by City Council in 2001 for 3 lots along First Street, where all 3 of these lots have a shared driveway easement access to First Street. However, the driveway easement is almost entirely within the creek setback as approved by City Council and recorded as the final subdivision map. However, this subdivision approval never included a variance to allow construction of that driveway, which is required to be located within the recorded easement and would be located within that creek setback of Calder Creek. Staff believes this variance meets all the criteria of the required findings for a variance, as there are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the land, building, or use referred to in this application, which circumstances or conditions do not generally apply to land, buildings, and or uses in the same district. Therefore, this variance is being brought to the Planning Commission for a public hearing to consider the approval of a variance. Of note, since the parcels would not be developable without a variance, on recommendation from the city attorney, a denial of this variance would constitute a taking, possibly resulting in the right to a monetary or other compensation. Staff believes the proposed use is compatible with the site and recommends approval, subject to the following key conditions. Those conditions are, as noted in the Design Review Board's recommended conditions of approval. California native grasses and shrubs be planted within the creek riparian zone. No further structures shall be allowed within this creek setback, and any grading within the creek setback area shall be subject to review and approval of the city engineering director, who shall review the application in regards to its potential effects of the waterway and native plants. That is all that I have for the staff report. And I do want to note that Mario Landeros, the city engineer, is here to answer any staff questions relating to engineering or grading. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think, the information we have is the up-to-date information from Design Review Board as well?
The information that was provided in the packet is the most recent submittal. The Design Review Board did approve that submittal with a few conditions, limiting the conditioned space of the primary residence to 3,050 square feet with 1,100 square feet of conditioned space. And gave the planning department the discretion to review that without coming back to the board.
Okay, thank
But
you.
that revised application has not been submitted to the planning department yet.
Okay, all right. So at this point, questions for staff? Go ahead, Paul.
Thanks. I'm just curious, when the city council approved this in 2001, did our zoning code have the setback? And was there something that was just something that just overlooked at the time in terms of getting this all taken care of at that time?
We did look this, as far as we can tell, this creek ordinance was in place at that time in the same way.
Okay.
Generally, the creek ordinances that are written this way are they're more of a flood protection for the land and the structure. But, in terms of not having buildings within a localized flood area, as we've talked about with the commission previously, potentially changing the creek ordinance in the future to be more protective of the creek. But as it stands right now, it's this more general kind of language that most cities have for that.
My kind of somewhat related question, because I did go to the site and I noticed, and even just looking at the drawings, that the lots 1 and 2 do have a driveway built. How were they able to build a driveway without the variance?
So I would say that the city council, approval of that, you don't need a building permit for a driveway.
Mm.
And so there is no, they did put in utilities. Utilities are allowed within the creek setback.
Mhm.
So presumably they put in the utilities and then afterwards they came through and, did the grading for the driveway. And so part of that is because council approved it in the way they did back in 2002. This is kind of making sure that we formalize it, not just for this parcel, but you're correct. Those two, the driveway on those two parcels as well would be part of this
Okay,
approval.
so that applies to all 3 parcels, the variance.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. And then I'm just curious, how does Fish and Wildlife kind of come into play and the, Sonoma County Regional Water Quality Control Board and all those other agencies? I'm just wondering what our obligations are to those other entities. Do we have any obligation to those? Is this creek setback just our zoning code, or how
So
does that?
this creek setback is our zoning code. There are requirements that they get any required permits from any of those agencies as part of their permitting process. And that is actually part of the, when the subdivision was approved, there was a CEQA, California Environmental Quality Act review
Mhm.
done for that. And there was a mitigated negative declaration, which means that they looked at potential impacts. They did find some potential impacts
Mhm.
of significance, but they were able to be mitigated. And so there are mitigations included in the subdivision resolution, which is in the staff report or attached to the staff report. And those would apply. And so any necessary permits, usually that is when you're a little bit closer to the creek, when you're building a bridge over a creek or something like that, where you're actually, and it gets pretty technical in terms of where you're putting the foundations and the stanchions and everything like that,
Mhm.
in terms of whether or not you're subject to that or not. Both the city engineer and I will be reviewing that to make sure if there are any other permits that they are processed.
Okay. And then my last question is there, I see the plans and where they're proposing to put things. When we're approving the variance is just to allow the creation or the construction of the driveway in the creek setback. But are there any specific boundaries they're saying, or is it like per the submitted plans, or is it just anywhere you want in the setback, or, is there some kind of language, or what's the controlling mechanism of that?
Sure. So every approval that we have starts off with number 1, staying in substantial conformance with the approved plans,
Mhm.
except as modified by, and then the rest of the conditions.
Mhm.
And as John noted, we are asking that the small portion that's within the 100, I want to call it the 100-foot flood area, but the floodable area, 1% chance
Mhm.
that the driveway be removed from that area. So that would be a modification. It would actually bring it further out,
Mhm.
away from the creek.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Other questions? Go ahead.
Thank you. I had a similar question about the existing driveway on lots 1 and 2. When I see the actual driveway, it's a pretty straight shot after you turn the corner and head south. But on all the existing drawings that I've seen, the driveway tends to have an S curve. Again, it's that question of whether we're actually approving that driveway that is there now, or whether we're approving something that is in an actual drawing at some point. And I have a little problem with that because I don't know what we're really looking at. I don't know exactly where it's going to be.
Sure.
get my-
And this is maybe a question for the applicant, if
Okay.
you're able to coordinate, Tina, I don't, or the engineer is here as well, if they intend to do any modifications to the existing driveway on lots 1 and 2. Obviously, their work on 3 is outlined pretty clearly in the drawings.
Yeah.
Is that the question, Commissioner Ottinger?
Yes, but we could talk about that when we're asking the applicant.
Okay.
My other question to staff would be the building envelopes being 20 feet set back from the northern property line. Is that cast in stone? It seems like we have also allowed a lot shorter distances between.
It
property
is
lines.
cast in stone. It was, so when a building envelope is set like this, it overrules any particular zoning envelope because this was done as part of the actual subdivision. So like, for instance, the side, the north setback is 5 feet. That would actually probably for the zone, it could potentially be larger, but because of the way this went through the process, the particular building envelopes, so the particular setbacks were set
Okay.
as part of this. And I will note, that went through a couple of design review iterations. There's a huge heritage tree that is being saved that would not be saved if you move the house closer to that property line.
Yeah, I was wondering about that also. And then my other question, just, I didn't watch the DRB meeting at all. And I'm just wondering if in keeping with the character of that neighborhood, there was any requirement for gutters and sidewalks along First Street, or whether that will remain pretty much as it has been engineered so far.
There were no requirements. So this is essentially a landlocked parcel without the easement driveway in, which is part of why we're discussing it, in terms of the access. But this parcel would not be required to do any sort of curb gutter sidewalk.
Down at the bottom of lot 1.
No, this is lot 3. The last lot is being developed. There is no requirement for them to do that
Okay.
on
that
lot
lot.
1 or
Or on any of the
offsite.
lots.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
So we're,
And Commissioner Unger, that's one where, yes, lots 1 and 2 are not developed at this point. But if you wanted to provide direction to staff for lot 1, you can certainly do that during your deliberations in terms of anything like that.
but we are establishing a variance if we do for all 3 parcels.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, but not development metrics unless, yeah, I believe, and can I ask what zoning this is? So I believe R3 requires sidewalks when it's on the property. So when lot 1 develops it, like it would require that to be continued.
Thank you. Those are the end of my questions for now.
Commissioner Burns, do you have any questions? Yeah, Commissioner Burns, do you have any questions? I don't know if you can hear me. Staff? Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, she did let me know before the meeting. She's having a little bit of connectivity. So let me just check with her.
Okay.
And if she does need to turn her camera off, that's why she's trying to keep it on because of the Brown Act regulations.
Okay.
Wait, are you guys talking about me? I can't.
Yes.
Oh, my camera's on.
Yeah. Did you have any questions, Debbie?
No, thank you.
Okay. So I just wanted to, first of all, for public disclosure, I did go to the site and I did a walkthrough through there. Could you expand a little bit more on the city manager or city attorney's comment about the planning commission denial being equivalent to taking?
Having the potential to be
Yeah.
takings. Yeah, and actually, I'm going to ask our city attorney, who is here, Larry McLaughlin, to on the screen to for him to comment on that.
Great, thank you.
Yes, we've also had this looked at by outside counsel. An argument, in fact, can be made that because when the city council approved this subdivision back in 2002, it approved it in the configuration that's shown on the drawings, that it might have de facto created a variance just by creating that subdivision in the way that it did. But putting that aside, it's apparent that the variance is required for any reasonable development of this lot. So when you create a subdivision in that manner, you really have no option but to allow a variance from that. Otherwise, you've denied the property owner all viable use of his property. So that's the reason, for my opinion, that I do advise that this variance should be granted under the circumstances.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, so if there's no other questions of staff, I will ask the applicant if they want to make any comments.
And the applicant has let us know that they don't have any formal presentation, but they are available for questions. And just to notice, again, a city engineer is here, but the applicant's attorney as well as civil engineer are available.
Okay, so ask commissioners before we open up for public comment if there's any questions for applicants or city engineer.
And Chair Fernandez, I believe there was the question about whether any modifications to the driveway on lot 1 and 2 were proposed.
Okay, thank you for that reminder.
Good evening. Tina Wallace, legal counsel for the applicant. Also available via Zoom is our civil engineer, Chad Mosier from Lako and Associates. And I'll just briefly touch upon a couple of things and also reserve time for rebuttal to respond to public comments, please. I was able to confirm that there are no plans to change the existing physical driveway. I'll defer further questions on that to Mr. Mosier, who is on Zoom. He does not have his camera on though. And would respectfully request that you follow the city attorney's advice. I do agree there is a de facto variance that's been approved. This was approved in 2001. And as is set forth in the staff report, you can easily make the required findings under the city code. With that, I do want to respect your time. I'll take any questions. And again, our engineer is available. And I'll reserve time for rebuttal. Thank you.
Any questions from commissioners? Okay.
Just the one question. I can see it applying to lots 1 and 2, but I have a hard time seeing it apply to lot 3, since this driveway does go to lot 3.
I want to make sure I understand your question. You're asking about the variance requirement or the driveway?
A variance for a driveway going all the way to lot 3. It seems like there's already one that goes up to lot 3, but it doesn't seem like the positioning of the driveway on lot 3 has been established or approved previously. I'm just asking that question.
Yeah. And I am going to ask Mr. Mosier to be prepared to respond after I speak. What I understand is that that driveway even on all of the lots was approved in 2001. Obviously, I wasn't here in 2001, but that is my understanding. And it's also the only way to avoid approving this variance is the only way to avoid a landlocked parcel and to avoid a takings. And the owners have been through a lot. They want to work cooperatively with the city, and they do appreciate the awkwardness of having a variance before you that really must be approved under the law. And as to the location of the driveway on lot 3 on the map, I'm going to ask Mr. Mosier to provide more detail, please.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you. So if you look at the package that was submitted with this, there is a driveway that's shown in there that leads up to the proposed house locations, and so that would be the driveway that lies within the creek setback zone, and it would connect to the existing driveway that goes up there. And there's no there's no design beyond that point. We're going to utilize that existing driveway. The only thing I would imagine that would happen there would potentially be a repave, given that the condition of the existing driveway, but we would not be changing the location of that existing driveway. So I hope does that answer your question or?
And if I could just add, there is a packet in the staff report. I have the hard copy, so I don't have the PDF page number. Carrie, it looks like it's from the recorder's office. It's got a 647 at the top. And if you look at that, you can see how the driveway reaches the boundary of lot 3, but it does not reach the building envelope on lot 3. And what needs to happen is the driveway needs to go to the building envelope so that a structure can be constructed there. And again, thank you, Carrie. If you look carefully, not that one. Not quite the
Is it
same
one with the
match.
Building envelope.
Is there, this one has the creek setback on it?
Yeah, I think
It's
the next one.
parcel
There
map
we go.
number
Okay.
140. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one I have. on
May
here.
I go and point at the screen? Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. I just didn't see it there, so I wondered.
It's a little hard to see on 8.5 by 11-inch paper. All right. Any other questions for the applicant team?
Let's see. It looks like on that area, it's subject to, or has been flooded, kind of where the driveway is looking proposed. And I'm just curious as to what plans might be thought of to maybe avoid that in the future.
Yeah, I don't have any firsthand information about flooding. However, as both I think your city attorney, city staff, and the applicant engineer can tell you, there are a number of standards that come into play. And all of the legally required standards will be met. And I don't know if Mr. Mosier can elaborate on those standards.
Yeah, what, there is a 100-year flood elevation along that creek, and the houses, of course, are out of that, and the road is, I believe the roadbed itself is actually out of that. So we won't, up to the 100-year flood, we shouldn't be experiencing any issues. Beyond that, that's unknown.
Thank you. Okay. Another quick thank you for that. We'll open it up for public comment.
Okay, and I'll be back on rebuttal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so for public comment, we'll do as we did last, which was the format for these meetings is we'll take anyone in person, if you can line up at the speaker podium. And we will take one person in person. And then if there's anyone on Zoom, we'll take a person from Zoom and go back and forth.
And just to clarify, any questions that may be brought up by public comment, we will address those after we're done with public comment.
Okay. And I will note, Daniel, can you see the 3-minute timer on the screen over there? It's right up top center. We can just give you a warning too when you're.
I do see the 3 minutes, and I know that that's the standard idea. And so I had a question, and that question is, we haven't seen any plans for the house now that Design Review Board has limited its size of less than 1,000 square feet less. And under those conditions, do you even need a variance? Can you put the driveway now up to the building envelope without building within the 30-foot setback, and so it becomes unnecessary? Is that possible? So there's a question. Another thing that I came across in the geotechnical report is a note on page 5, item D, about lateral spreading and lurching, and it says, lurching is an action which produces cracks and fissures parallel to streams or banks when the earthquake motion is at right angles. According to the surface features and topographical data, the banks of the creek are shallow 2 to 5 feet. They could be prone to lurching under a moderate to large seismic event. However, the map shows an approximate 30-foot setback from the creek, and this should be an adequate setback distance for future structures and improvements. So did anybody take this into consideration when they granted this thing at all? Because they're saying that if you have less than 30-foot setback, then the structures put there are going to be subject to damage from a moderate earthquake. And we had one not 8 months ago when I bought earthquake insurance because my whole house shook on Jewel Avenue. Can you answer those questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. And do we have anyone, if you are participating via Zoom, if you could either raise your hand or sorry, I lost my screen for a second. If you could raise your virtual hand or your actual hand, or let me know in the chat if you'd like to make a comment. Okay, I do not see anyone on Zoom. Is there anyone else in the room, physical room, who would like to make a comment? Thank you. We'll make that part of the public record. Okay. Chair Fernandez, I do not see anyone else wishing to make a public comment. So I'll just, let me scan the gallery of the meeting one more time. Yeah, I do not see anyone else make for a public comment.
And we did note the letters.
Yes, we have received a number of letters and a video actually from Daniel. Those are all posted to the website, and the comments are available for review in the back of the room in the binder if anyone likes. And those were all forwarded to the commission.
Okay, great. Thank you. So go ahead and close public comment and just bring it back and see if we can answer the question regarding the smaller footprint and it still necessitates having a variance.
Sure. So I think and I'll certainly let the applicant, but if I might start off on this one for the first component. So, and actually, let me share the screen and go back to where the driveway alignment was approved and recorded. So the easement for the driveway is, let's just do this here. So that's the property line. I think I probably needed the mouse back, but that's okay. The creek setback is dashed here. And then the driveway, and you can actually see that it was actually constructed with this little bit of a curve up here. The distance between the driveway easement, which is where the drive is allowed to be by law, it's easements are a form of ownership, and the creek setback here is about 3 feet. So to get a 16 or 18 foot wide driveway, there's no way to do that coming into the property and still have a driveway not in the creek setback. So like, do you understand what I'm saying, Commissioner Unger? Because I think this is one of your questions. If you were to continue this line of the driveway, you are in the creek setback on this parcel. So there's no way of doing it. You can't have a 3 foot driveway and just stop, continue there, stop the road and have a 3 foot, you'd have a sidewalk basically. So there's no actual way to do that without having a variance on this parcel as well. We require 2 parking spaces and you need a driveway to get to your parking spaces. And so obviously that's the variance being requested is for the creek setback, not for parking for the property.
So that driveway is intuited to be there, but not actually drawn.
Correct. And the reason it's not drawn is because an easement is a form of ownership. So lot 3 has rights of the driveway, so access rights and the public utility easement rights. So they have the right, if they needed to do improvements to get to the lot, and that's considered a form of ownership. It's so when you see the title, you'll see the parcel, but you'll also see those rights on the deed. And so that's not something that can just be erased. It's the lots 1 and 2 can't erase it and just pretend it doesn't exist. The lot 3 has the right to do that. Lot 3 also can't require those property owners to change it. And we can't condition a project on another property owner's approval to change something on their property. And so that's why this variance request is coming to you tonight. So that's my response. Tina, did you have anything you wanted to add to that? And then I will have either our city engineer or ask Laco to respond to the lateral spreading and the lurching question.
I don't want to repeat what your planning director said. I do understand that the garage location and when the plans are resubmitted will not be changing from prior design iterations, which again ties into the driveway location. As your planning director pointed out, just the tiny distance between the creek. I mean, it is not possible to have a driveway to access this property without this variance. And as I believe your city attorney noted, there is a de facto approval existing from 2001 that you are formalizing. And I'll defer to Mr. Mosier on the geotechnical issues and the lurching and ask him to provide a more technical response. Obviously, as we know, any structure in California is prone to seismic activity. Mr. Mosier, do you have anything to add?
I don't really have much to add. I'm not a geotechnical engineer. What I can tell you is that during the design of this building, when it goes to actual structural design, that the geotechs report will be taken into consideration. The building falls outside of that 30-foot setback. So really what we're talking about here is the driveway portion of the project, which shouldn't have any major impacts from lurching. That would be they would be inconvenient but not detrimental.
Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, I have a question for our city manager, city attorney. If this were appealed, just as an example, to city council, does that essentially put them in the same position? I'm just curious on that part.
I want to make sure I understand the question. Put them who in which position?
So in other words, if this variance, let's say if it is approved here by the commission and it is appealed to city council, are they in the same situation of in denying that variance would also?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I would give the city council the exact same advice.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay, so bring it back to commissioners for any other questions, comments, or motions. Go ahead, Paul.
I just have a typo to correct in Exhibit A. Item 5, there's just an A missing from the word area. That's Exhibit A, and it's on page 10 of the PDF if anyone's following along at home. But with that, I'd like to make a motion that we approve resolution 23, whatever this will be, for a variance for a driveway at 771-773 First Street to allow the driveway construction within a creek setback.
And I will second that to make the statement that I really wanted to clear up exactly where the lines were in that driveway, because any person looking at that would wonder why that was permitted. And there were also some suggestions for other locations for the driveway. I also stepped over the chain link fence to walk into the property and think that it would be fine, and that improvements to the slope would help it a lot. I did also notice that, and this, I guess, part of discussion, sorry,
Discussion.
that the existing asphalt is kind of falling apart there. So I don't, I would hope that it looks like they're planning for a permeable surface that might be a little less likely to fall apart in that way if it's interlocking. But otherwise, yeah, I support the variance as well.
Okay. I will just make a comment. It's kind of an unusual situation where this project was kind of already approved and gives the commission unfortunate limitations to what we can do with that. Normally, this would come to planning commission first, and then for the variance, and then it would proceed for further approval. So it's just a very unusual situation from that. Just make that comment. Commissioner Burns, do you have anything to add, or otherwise I will call for a vote?
Wait, are you saying Commissioner Burns?
I'm sorry, yes. Do you have any comments?
No, you actually said my comment. It felt like our hands were kind of, yeah. So you spoke exactly what I was going to say.
Okay, thank you. All right, go ahead and call for the vote then.
Thank you. Commissioner Burns,
Yes.
Commissioner Ottinger,
Yes.
Vice Chair Fritz,
Aye.
and Chair Fernandez.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes 4-0 with one absent. And I will just note that there is a 7-day appeal period ending next Tuesday at 5 p.m. At which time any appeals must be received. Please contact the planning department for more information. And if no appeals are received after that, the approval will be final.
Thank you, everyone, for the work on this, and it was a little challenging. Okay, move on to item 5B, 6811 Laguna Parkway, Goatlandia conditional use permit.
Thank you. Yes, Goatlandia Kitchen is going to propose a full-service vegan restaurant that will provide a bona fide kitchen at the old Smokehouse Barbecue location. The establishment will have a mix of over 50 seats, indoor and outdoor, and is requesting a Type 41 ABC license. Part of their business will include a commissary kitchen that will be used for a community's lunchtime takeover, serving free plant-based organic lunches to local businesses. Goatlandia does intend to have house recorded music, and as the site was previously approved to be part of the Peacetown Concert Series under the temporary use permit of the Smokehouse Barbecue, staff has informed the applicant that they would be allowed to partake in that series should they want to. Finally, Goatlandia is proposing regular business hours 5 days a week, and those days are to be determined. The hours would be from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. However, staff is recommending operations to be 7 days a week to provide flexibility to the applicant and would limit the need for them to come back to the Planning Commission for an amendment on that. I do have Christina as part of the applicant team here to answer any questions, and I'm not sure if she has anything additional to add on as part of the applicant's presentation.
Okay, I'll give her an opportunity if she wants to add any of that. So ask commissioners for questions of staff.
Yes, since we've discussed noise and sound and music at the site already, I noticed 3 areas where I thought there was some confusion. One is in the recommendations. I see in your staff report, you mentioned Peacetown Gathering Festival, but then you also say no sound may emanate from the building, which can be heard more than 50 feet from the business site, which seems like kind of a different standard. And then on conditions of approval, number 4, no sound may emanate from the building, which violates the noise ordinance or causes undue disturbance of neighbors. And I was wondering about the people up the hill. And then condition number 12, music may be conducted inside the establishment, only doors and windows closed during any activity. And it seemed like there's a lot of variance in there. And I think we should clean that up somehow. Like Peacetown, I think, should be allowed to make some noise. And I would think that even amplified sound could be ambient outdoors as well and be specified rather than only inside the building. And I don't know what other people think, but those 3 elements stood out to me.
Yeah, so maybe I can clarify it a little bit easier. So they would be subject to, for the Peacetown Concert Series, when Peacetown is here in town and operating during those times, outside of that window, they would be subject to the regular sound ordinance and noise ordinance conditions. So they are in there to make sure that the restaurant would be subject to the noise ordinance and those conditions outside of the Peacetown Summer Series. So it wouldn't be a year-round allowance for the same noise level that they would be allowed during Peacetown. if that makes sense.
It does, but it's confusing to me how sound cannot emanate from the building and yet it can, but be heard no more than 50 feet away. Those two things seem 50 feet away from the building is outside the building. And it, in one case, it says it can't be outside the building. In the other case, it can't be 50 feet away. Or is 50 feet away part of the
50 feet away
Peace
from
Town
the
gathering?
business site, which is across the street.
Yes.
So that isn't just outside the building. You can still have noise on the property,
Okay.
but
And
50 feet away from the parcel.
is that the Peace Town?
I think that
standard?
actually could be part of the discussion because I think
Okay.
we do still have a noise ordinance, but that is, I don't know if that's a little bit higher than the 50, no sound 50 feet from the site. If they wanted to exceed, there is a downtown noise permit that can be
Mhm.
granted. That's only allowed in the downtown commercial zone. Most of Peacetown is not in the commercial zone, the downtown zone. This is the only site that is. But they would need to ask for that entitlement. And, the applicant may be able to clarify what they plan on doing regarding
Mhm.
Peacetown, and that might help the commission.
So except for Peace Town, at all other times, according to condition of approval number 12, music must be inside the establishment only with doors and windows closed. Is that really what we're asking them? So there's no sound in the patio area at all?
Under this condition, and some of these I will note are the existing conditions that are part of the original approval. But as written, it does say, and so you would need to modify this. Recorded background music can be done only inside the establishment. I think their intent is to do it outside. And so again, that's
So we need to
probably something to
change.
be clarified in the conditions.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Go ahead.
And just sort of follow up on that condition 12, because it talks about, and maybe we just, as part of the discussion, but because it says all doors and windows during that should be, during any music inside should be closed. I mean, the doors and windows are, a piece of vinyl. So I don't know that that's really doing anything. So I agree. I think condition number 12 needs to be kind of re-examined.
Okay.
And my other question is, I know the application, they said it's kind of, it sounds like more of a dinner place from 5 to 9. They will let the kitchen be used more for lunchtime. And I do see that the condition 5 said the planning director should be able to modify the hours. And maybe this is a question for the applicant, but I'm wondering about, should we say that, lunchtime hours are, in case they ever want to be open for lunch, expand their hours? Do we need to state that in the conditions, or can we just leave that up to the planning director to do that if that opportunity presents itself?
Was that a question?
I don't know.
Vice
maybe
Chair, or
that's a
just a
question.
thought? Sorry.
It wasn't really, I guess, I guess it's maybe more of a question for the commission. So maybe that's a public or a discussion item. Sorry.
Yeah.
And that's all I had.
Okay. Commissioner Burns, go ahead.
Well, I was just lowering my hand because I was going to say the same thing, that their hours are 5 to 9. Should we extend them now so they don't have to come back in case they decide to do lunch, as well as we have had sound issues at this site. So I think you guys just tackled both of my questions.
Okay, thank you. I also had the same comment regarding the hours. And also just a question, is there any intent to do any off-sale alcohol?
Yes, I did reach out to the applicant. They did want to have a off-sale opportunity, and under type 41 ABC does allow them to do that, but we did include that as one of the conditions of approval, number 9. Normally that would have no off-sale beer and wine, but we did change that to have no beer or wine shall be displayed within 5 feet of the front door cash register. So it does allow them to do off-sale should
Okay.
they want to.
Okay, yeah, I just want to clarify that. Okay, So go ahead and if the applicant has any comments or presentations or questions.
Good evening. Thank you so much for inviting us to the meeting. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, I think so.
Wonderful. Just to speak to the issue of sound and windows, we are planning on rebuilding the facade of that front patio area to include actual windows that do open and close. So that is one thing to note. And we would like to have the option to participate in Peacetown because it is a great community event, and we would like to be able to continue to have that option. And we're not planning on having music that would be a disturbance to the neighborhood. We very much recognize that there has been trouble with music in the past from that space and it going on at irregular hours, and we're really committed to being a good community member in that way. And I just welcome any questions.
And then also there was a question regarding the hours. So staff is recommended, might as well give you permission up to 7 days a week in case you ever want to do that. You don't have to come back. And then what about the hours? Do you have expand those as well, or what do you think about that?
To streamline the process, so we don't have to come back and do a review, we can absolutely say we can apply for doing the 7 days a week and extending to lunch hours. It's not within our proposal right now, but it is really great to have the option. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, applicant? Okay, so I'll go ahead and open it up for public comment at this point.
Thank you. So if we do have public comment, you're heading in the right direction. Thank you. Please step up to the podium, and then we'll take one person in person and then one person remote until we have no more speakers. So please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. My name's Steve Dillon. I live up on Taft Street, 375, and myself and 11 other members of our street have had ongoing problems from the previous business. And it looked like it was going in a direction that we didn't care for with the use permit of the barbecue place. And then he pulled the use permit. I understood at that time that that use permit was dead. So when there's discussion about the use permit, I don't know what that use permit is. Another thing is that we have the same concerns about recorded music because it's amplified music, and whether there's going to be some sound mitigation or, at least reasonable addressing of the neighbors once they get established. And the Peacetown thing is, you all take care of that. It's loud. I don't think anything they can do there will exceed what we hear from Peacetown. We know it's limited during the year. We're okay with that. So, anything else? Nope. That's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your comment.
Thank you. And if we do have anyone from the Zoom attendants who would like to make a public comment, if you could raise your virtual hand, show your screen and raise your actual hand, or let me know in the chat feature down at the bottom that you'd like to make a comment. That would be helpful. And John, could you just note, did we receive any written comments?
We didn't receive any written comments for this agenda item.
Great, thank you. And I do not see anyone from the Zoom format who would like to comment.
Okay. And there was a question regarding where we stand with the current use permit that goes with that property.
Okay, so yes, thank you. And for the opportunity to clarify that, Steve is correct. The Smokehouse Barbecue use permit to have additional music events was withdrawn by the owner of the Smokehouse Barbecue when he retired. When we refer to the conditions in the original use permit, this is actually like I don't know if it was the 2010 or so, the original alcohol use permit, which did not, and condition 12 that we included, and that's part of why we included it, was to note specifically that live music and entertainment isn't, it's not an entertainment venue, and therefore it's not being permitted as that.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. I actually have a question regarding, there was, the intent is to rent out the kitchen to other entities, which is great. There's always a need for that. Are there any conditions of approval that relate to that we should be aware of or consider?
So in general, this kind of, I think in the hours, I think understanding that the hours of operation are likely to be very different compared to the service hours. I do agree with the commission and with John's recommendation that we shouldn't limit it to the 5 days, 5 to 9, because that's just, there's no reason to. John and I had talked about 7 days, and I'm not sure if Christine knows when they might start cooking in the morning, but in terms of morning hours, I think it could go as early as 7 a.m. If someone wanted to do a breakfast kind of a thing, but otherwise the 9 p.m. hour ending time makes sense. And I think that would also cover any of the commissary. The restaurant isn't allowed use, so really this is simply the alcohol use permit and some of the ancillary activities that happen when people imbibe in an outdoor patio kind of a setting, and making sure that those are appropriately conditioned.
Okay. Thank you. Bring it back to commission for other questions of staff or the applicant. Okay, I don't see, or comments or motions. Go ahead, Paul.
So I just think we should discuss this condition 12 and figure out what we want to say.
And I can put it on the screen if you give me a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'll just say that, I think, sort of background music is acceptable. So I think that's fine. And, obviously they need to still comply with the, city's noise ordinance. So no, sound more than 50 feet from the property at those times. And I think, it needs to be just cleaned up about just this, I think this condition needs to be cleaned up a bit.
The requirement that it's just inside.
Yeah,
And the
I
closing
think,
doors,
I
windows.
think if they have some speakers out in that kind of, table area outside, I think that's fine, as long as it's not, loud enough to be heard 50 feet, across the street or whatever that is. So I'm okay with, kind of quiet background music. It's not a concert place other than possibly during Peacetown. And then that's, I understand, is a separate use permit that grants that activity. So.
And then condition 10.
Like Carrie catch up with condition 12.
Sorry. Go ahead. Why don't you finish it?
I'm done with the Carrie's typing, so.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Yes, thank you. And so actually I do have the condition on the screen. So it is the establishment is not approved as an entertainment venue. Dancing and or regular live music shall not be permitted on the premises without prior city approval. So those are staying. As an incidental use, recorded background music and occasional live acoustic music may be conducted inside the establishment only. And I guess the question is here, I think live acoustic music, would you want to restrict that to still be inside? So we don't get that creep of, and maybe the applicant can address, are you intending to have any live music at all? And I've been told that's a bird.
We do not have the intention to do live music, recorded music only.
Okay, so would it make sense to just say live as an incidental use, recorded background music may be utilized or is allowed?
Is approved, it was allowed. Yeah, and take out the part about the doors and windows.
And then at that point, I would probably recommend taking out the police department or planning director may require termination or modification of such activity. We can leave that in because that's obviously if it's outside and it's too loud, then we would want them to modify it to turn it down.
Sure.
So we can actually leave that.
Or do we say that, maybe the end of that, within the recorded background music is allowed within the confines or within the allowances of the noise ordinance or something like that?
Yeah, or as long as it's not heard more than 50 feet away from the venue, because that's actually that's far easier to
Yeah.
regulate as we've
Or-
discussed.
Yeah,
noise
yeah,
ordinance.
I think that would be fine. Since that
Okay.
seems, that's.
And
standard
50 feet,
language.
just to remind everyone, is the width of Laguna Parkway. So it can, it shouldn't be, if you're standing on the sidewalk on the other side of Laguna Parkway, you shouldn't be able to hear the music from the venue. I think I'm caught up now, Paul. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, on condition 10 says about placement of bottles, hours of 9 to 9, but previously it says 9 to 10 in the beginning description.
I believe our standard is 9 to 9, and I would suggest we keep it 9 p.m.
Right, but I'm just saying that,
The staff one says-
yes, it's
Got it.
9
Okay.
to 10. So I just wanted to clarify that. Okay. Let's see. I think we addressed anything else we needed to address on there. Okay. Any comments, motions? I don't see any comments from Commissioner Burns. I'll go ahead and make a motion for approval with the modifications to the conditions of approval.
And I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments before we go to vote? Okay, we'll go ahead and ask for the vote.
Thank you, Chair Fernandez. I will call a roll vote. Commissioner Burns,
Yes.
Commissioner Ottinger,
Yes.
Vice Chair Fritz,
Aye.
and Chair Fernandez.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Congratulations, Christina. This is approved. And actually, now that you just did the vote, and now I'm going to get myself into trouble. Did we modify the hours of operation?
Yeah, we said is,
We didn't change.
Right. Chair Fernandez, would you like to reconsider your motion?
yes,
Amend your motion?
yes, to amend my motion to include the modifications to the conditional approval and to allow for 7 days. And did we do anything with the hours? I think we just leave that open to the, I guess, time director's discretion.
How about 9 to 9?
9. Okay.
I would suggest we still allow, if there's an amendment that, the previous language said that planning, the hours can be modified by the plan director. I think we could leave that in there. In case they want to start at 8
Yeah.
or something
Okay.
like that.
So just modify the hours, but not the ability to adjust.
Yeah,
And that would be 7 days and 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
yeah.
Okay. And
So
the
we,
second, does the person who
that was
second
the second.
agree with that? I
Amend the
agree with that.
motion.
the
I-
friendly amendment.
Repeat my second.
Okay, and we should,
Okay, so now if there's no further
you.
discussion, I will do the roll vote. Commissioner Burns,
Yes.
Commissioner Ottinger,
Yes.
Vice Chair Fritz,
Aye.
and Chair Fernandez.
hi,
All right, thank you.
thank you for catching that.
Frankly, I could have just modified that, given the conditions of approval right
Yeah.
away, but
Yeah.
it seemed clearer this way.
Yeah.
So there is a 7-day appeal period, Christina. If we don't receive any appeals by next Tuesday at 5 p.m., the approval will be final.
And Christina, good luck, and really appreciate your willingness to offer the kitchen. I know that's working with a lot of startup businesses. I know that's a high demand, and I think it'll really create a good service for the community. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. And we really hope that we get to be that for y'all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. It is 7:10. We have item number 6, regular item training video. Should we go proceed with that, or what do you think?
We can proceed with that. Did you want to do the planning department report first and then maybe take a 5-minute break so I can get the video set up?
That's a great idea. Let's do that. Well, we'll go with any subcommittee updates first.
Perfect.
If there are any. Okay, now go ahead. Planning director's report.
Okay, sorry. There we go. So we have a couple of items of interest on next Tuesday's city council agenda. There is, we did receive an application for the Climate Action Committee for youth members, so they'll be doing an interview for that. There are a couple of reports related to housing. One is Vice Mayor Rich and myself are the council and staff liaison on housing and homeless issues. And so we will be submitting our first quarterly report for 2023. That will include updates on Park Village, West County Community Services, the Saves RV site, and Elderberry Commons. And so look for that next week. There will also be a couple of requests from Saves. One is their quarterly informational report as required by their use permit. That will actually then come to the next planning commission meeting as well, which is part of the conditions of approval. It'll be a regular agenda item for you. And then they are requesting a waiver of the fees of about $5,600 and change dollars for their application fees from the planning department, which we as a department are supportive of. I believe there will be a Russian River watershed presentation that evening as well. For those of you that are interested, the Recology franchise agreement will also be on that agenda. So a few interesting goodies coming up on that one. Let's see, the development projects that are moving ahead. We have been in discussions with the Hotel Sebastopol. They are working through actually PG&E, technical issues, and they have, I believe I mentioned at the last meeting, they have submitted their Caltrans encroachment permit package. So that's continuing to move forward on those deferred submittals. The Woodmark Apartments, their building permit is ready to issue. And we are having a pre-construction meeting with them Thursday, and we anticipate they will pick up their building permit on Thursday as well and start construction in the next couple of weeks. And that is on phase 1, which is 48 units. Those are the front buildings. And so that will be, we've been working closely with them on construction management issues like the truck routes, which will not be coming through downtown, except for a very few. Most of them will be going to the west and out of town, and making sure the utilities in the roadway are going in after school is out when they need to tie those in. So they were able to shift those a couple of weeks at our suggestion. So they've been working well with us on those things. So any other large projects updates that we have, John? Go ahead, go for it.
Yeah, so at the next planning commission meeting, we'll be having 7631 Healdsburg Avenue. That building was finalized last week. They did request a conditional use permit to transfer or change the commercial space on the ground floor to 2 residential units. So that will be coming to the planning commission, mostly on the feedback that they got from the preliminary review for their project next door of going full residential on that corner. So yay that building is finally final, and the fencing is no longer up. There's actually nice lattice fencing up. So, and then the other two projects moving forward are the Barlow Hotel and the Canopy project are still moving forward with their CEQA analysis soon.
Let's see. Oh, could you remind us who the liaisons are for city council meetings coming up? I couldn't
I
find my list.
don't have it in front of me. However, I know we don't need anyone at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Linda was for last month,
Okay.
and I can't remember
just
who
wanted to
is
make
for
sure.
this month. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but we won't need anyone for the next meeting. Oh, and I think the other update is that the zoning amendment for cannabis was formally adopted by council. And so that applicant, we will be processing their application at the staff level as proposed and as adopted in the zoning amendment
Okay.
for them to add the delivery only to their existing manufacturing business.
Okay. Great. Any questions from planning department reports? Okay. So let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break, and then we will reconvene.
Okay, we are still live on YouTube, just so you all know that it should be more or less blank. Okay.
The following hypothetical case based on a Michigan Court of Appeals. The following hypothetical case based on a Michigan Court of Appeals. The following hypothetical case based on a Michigan Court of Appeals. The following hypothetical case based on a Michigan Court of Appeals. The following hypothetical case based on a Michigan Court of Appeals. The following hypothetical case based on a Michigan Court of Appeals. Hypothetical case based on a Michigan Court of Appeals. Hypothetical case based on a decision highlights a number of the issues that we have discussed. Michigan Court of Appeals. Hypothetical case based on a decision highlights a number of the issues that we have discussed during this course. Let's discuss the activity guidance. Carl McIntosh owns a manufacturing plant that makes wooden shipping pallets. Across the street and adjacent to the Green River. Hypothetical case based on a Michigan. Let's discuss the activity guidance. Carl McIntosh based on a plant that makes wooden shipping pallets.
I did just have the sound, right? You did, yeah. Okay. I had the sound, but no video. Yeah, that's not how I did it before.
Hypothetical case based
I'm not sure what else to do.
Hypothetical case based on a Michigan Court of
I apologize.
I'm not sure what else to
may
do.
not be, I may not know how to do this from this, from this seminar. We scored.
Gary, do you think it might not be letting you play the video and screen share and be live streaming to YouTube all at the same time? There may be some sort of conflict.
Oh, let me